Morning, actually, good afternoon. Who we got out there so far? I'll start here in just a minute to cover. You said that, Peter, not me. I'll cover here in a few minutes just how to go about this rhetorical analysis on Clare Boothe Luce, and actually, really how simple it is. There are you're going to see, if you do these practices over the next few days, and I'm sorry, the next few weeks, which is just a few classes, you're going to see they're all the same, and they have enough rhetorical analysis, rhetorical devices in there to spot, and all you got to do is tie it back to the purpose. And in this particular prompt, the purpose was actually given. It took out half the work. Can't even mess that up. Before we go over it, just make sure everybody sees above. But I listed all the rhetorical devices that we learned in class or reviewed in class and are the most likely to be on the exam. Okay, if they're not on there, don't worry about it. The last rhetorical analysis we did, I had students using rhetorical devices I didn't teach, and two of them I had to look up. They're not expecting you to know that, and it would really look like you're using an outside source if you come up with those. So you don't have to get overly cute, and you're going to see that today. Today was pretty easy, but I would suggest, the following things as we get ready to go through this. And this session should only be 15 minutes. Okay, this is not going to take long. All right. So if one is relax. If you're doing this test, we got it. We're going to do all right with it. If you're paying attention to these reviews, you'll be fine. I would review the rhetorical devices. If there's any in there that you're pretty sure are going to be the most common, feel free to write them down. Unfortunately for you, Jacob, when we take it for real, it's in the afternoon. Okay. The chance of anaphora being on one of these is so ridiculously great. It's such a common rhetorical device. It's like reading poetry and saying, hey, look, there's symbolism in it. Well, of course there is. It's poetry. It's going to have it. So next year with Miss Clinton, Miss Barrett, you're going to get a bunch of that stuff. So just be prepared and don't. And I got a feeling you almost feel guilty. Like we just did this 3 times, and you're telling me I got to do it again for real. Yeah, it's going to be. If you're ready, should be not hard. Okay, should not be hard. I think you should have a couple cheat sheets, right? And there's nothing to stop you from having the rhetorical devices up, but I wouldn't spend a lot of time going up and down that, and I'll explain that in just a minute. But I'd have a couple. There's an anaphora all over this thing. It was like a shotgun blast of an anaphora. I'd have an empty outline ready to go. I did it today with you guys. I had an empty outline. I'll show you mine in a second, and I just filled it in. I would be ready to write. Anybody that wants to, I'm going to talk about that, Jalen. Yes. Anyone who wants to write it and email it to me for me to read, I'll be happy to do it. Just set a timer for, say, 20 or 25 minutes and do it. 15 minutes to actually read it and actually do a proper outline will get the job done. And it's okay to spend the time doing the proper outline, because you will go right to the points and you'll hit them. Okay. So prepare that empty outline. I think you'll do well. Practice over the next couple of weeks navigating the College Board website for multiple reasons. One, for your AP exams. Okay. So feel free to do it and practice it in there. I'll do 2 more before May 20th. But also this practicing online is something College Board wants us to do. So next year, when you're in your AP classes for junior or senior year, there's a good likelihood your teachers are going to be using this site more. So, and I think I'll dabble more with it in the light of the circumstances, and I'm getting a little better at it. You guys are supposed to get an email today from College Board that is another test run or a practice. Look for it, okay? It's today. Peter, if you've got any information on that, feel free to chime it in up there, please. And then last thing to remember before we go through this, what are you best at? Are you best at handwriting or are you best at typing? I know that sounds ludicrous, but like I can type 50 to 70 words a minute. Depends on what kind of mood I'm in and how much of a hurry I'm in. Some of you never picked up typing because you didn't have to, all right? And so typing might be a disaster, right? Also, some of you have the worst handwriting on the face of the earth, okay? College Board does not do well with you reading script that looks like you shoved a pen up your nose and tried to write. So what are you best at, and use that mode to get the test done. All right, and with that, let's begin, okay? Let's take a look at this on the COVID page. I no intentions of reading this, okay? But again, going through, remember, review what logos, pathos, and ethos are, okay? And, you know, in this particular, I will cover the prompt, but I'm not going to read the passage again, okay? Jalen, no doubt. There's no doubt, and we're definitely going to talk about that, all right? And that's why the time period is very, very important, okay? All right, and I'll speak to that real quick, Jalen. She's trying to make women feel important, okay? All right, the speech is, if you gave this speech today, one woman to a bunch of women, it would be what's called an anachronism, all right? Out of place and out of time. It would be condescending to women for you today to tell them that they're important, okay? That has been established. 1942, the amount of congresswomen, she may have been the only one. I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to look it up, but there were not very many women in politics. So the fact that they got a woman to give this speech to other women about how important it is, because the women wanted to feel that sort of sense of importance, right? There was a huge conflict going on in the world, and women had a vital role in it that as history goes on, we realize more and more about, right? We always study the battles of the glamorous parts, but, you know, women were at home sometimes with children and working and doing these things. So it's definitely romanticized, okay? Just very quickly with the prompt. The United States participation in the Second World War began in 1941 and lasted until the Axis powers surrendered in 1945. During that period, on September 24th, 1942, Congresswoman Clare Boothe Luce, or Lucy, I think it's Lucy, developed or delivered the following address: the role of American women in wartime, to a women's banking committee. Know your audience, okay? That's a big deal, right? And again, we don't have to talk about her establishing ethos. It's one woman talking to other women, all right? So that would be kind of silly to talk about that. Read the passage carefully. We do. Write an essay that analyzes the rhetorical choices Lucy makes to convey her message that, and a lot of times it says, write a rhetorical analysis that conveys her message. You got to determine the message and then list the rhetorical devices. Well, they give it to you today. What's the message? Women needed to prepare to make more sacrifices as the war effort continued. That line needs to be in your essay multiple times, okay? So don't think you're cheating. It's there. Use it. Also, every bit of that bolded text belongs in your introduction. You introduce her. You introduce the title of her speech and the date that it is done. This is all in that I'm going to show you in the outline, okay? All right? So the speech is easy. In fact, it gets on the level of Dr. Seuss there for a while. All right, it's so easy. It's not hard at all. I did list that little box there. Again, not a good picture there. A soapstone. What's the speaker? What's the occasion? What's the audience purpose, subject, and tone? You could actually use that if you wanted to. All right, it's not something I taught in class because it's cute and I don't like cute. So just taking a look here at my blank outline. Notice this part. All right, I don't expect you to be able to read that right now. That was all on the paper when I started the rhetorical analysis, okay? And if you can see it, you know, I had rhetorical devices, 1, 2, 3, 4. I had the elements that go into the broad statement, the when, where, what, and why. And then the narrow gets the author, the piece, and its connection, right? And I want to jot that stuff down because when I begin to write, I want to write, I'm looking for the devices as I'm reading. I'm putting them here, and it's in my mindset when I go to the outline that down below of the points that I want to make, okay? So first thing is obvious. This thing is riddled with pathos, okay? So if you understood that she was doing an emotional appeal, you got the big one, okay? Pathos, 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 okay? Now, Jalen, if you want to get into the romanticizing it through emotion, that is exactly right. That will win the day, okay? There's also a level of diction. How do you know it's a big heartfelt thing? The constant, we, and we, okay? And that was that Jacob said there's an anaphora in there. Heck yeah, there is. There's an anaphora all over this place, right? And that's because she goes on and on about, she uses the words we, us, sisters, okay? All right? You can drop the word diction in there, okay? All right? Of course there's diction in it. It's a dang speech. There's going to be words in it. But when you purposefully use certain words, she doesn't say my fellow Americans, okay? Because she's not trying to unite all Americans. She's talking about us, we, women, sisters, okay? It's a big deal about empowering the women and showing them the way of what they need to do. And to get back to Jalen, a little bit of romanticizing, okay? If that's all you got out of this was pathos, you might pass it. You very might, especially if you had examples of the emotional appeal that she gives all the way through, okay, without using words like diction or anaphora, but you point out that she keeps appealing here and there about what they got to do. As long as you're tying back to right there, okay, women need to prepare to make more sacrifices for the job to be done. That's the most important thing. Now, what other little gems are in there going to take you up to the 4 and the 5 round? Okay, anaphora will get the job done. Right? She uses in one of the paragraphs, so I'm not going to waste time going for it. She uses "we are going" 8 times, I think, in one of the paragraphs. Okay, that is definitely on purpose. Okay, one of the softer ones, easily missed. Okay, is one bit of alliteration, okay? And if you missed it, yeah, big deal, right? She says rocks and ruts, okay? And then she says it's the rocks and ruts of life. It's down towards the bottom. And she says that it's the ruts of an endless, colorless effort and the rocks almost of insurmountable obstacles. So she used rocks and ruts to draw us in, right? That's the purpose of it, right? To draw us into those rocks and ruts. That's the big deal women face. And then she gives 2 examples. If you have that in there, you're going to the 4 and maybe the 5. Okay. But if you missed it, you got to have pathos. You got to have emotional appeal or pathos. Right? Anaphora is easy. Like I said, the chances of anaphora being in a rhetorical analysis are about 75%. Okay. So know it, learn it, love it. The other big one, okay, is antithesis, okay? And towards the bottom, I believe it was in the last paragraph, she says, a soft war leads to a hard peace, and a hard war leads to a happy peace, okay? Antithesis would be the best example there, all right? I got it on the cheat sheet. Let's say you can't remember antithesis, but you point out that line, right? And you call it diction, right? A great sentence structure when she does it. You're still going to get a 3 because what you've done is you have nailed the big line, the punchline, right? Right? And if we're soft, we're going to be in trouble when peacetime comes. But if we women are tough, all right, and hard, we'll have a happy peace, okay? So if you don't remember the title, but you point it out, you get it. And it's not hard to point out, right? It's not like, looking at one of the most famous speeches of all time in American history, Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. He didn't call it the I Have a Dream speech. He said, I got a speech I'm going to give tomorrow, okay? He gave it, But he said, I have a dream, and then he lists the things that he wants to see, none of which were going on in America, because that's why it was a dream. Otherwise it'd be, I have a reality speech, but that's not what's going on. I have a dream, gives the examples. I have a dream. I mean, back and forth, right? What do we remember? I have a dream, okay? And it was his ultimate goal, is to get us to visualize a better America, okay? And the same thing here. She's it's not the soft war speech, right? She's given a speech and trying to motivate these women. Other things that I wrote down here, right? One, my win, 1942, World War II. What are we talking about? The role of women on the home front. Where? USA, USA. And why are we talking about it? Okay, these women need to dig in. So the intro would be real easy, right? 1942, as the United States faced the global war of, the global conflict of World War II, at home, the women needed to step up and help with the war effort. All right, something to that effect. You got to have a sentence like that to contextualize everything. All right, going back to what Mr. Reisner taught you last year, and I've been hammering all year long. But then the narrow, and then you bring back Claire. In her 1942 speech to Congress, Congresswoman Clare Boothe Luce delivered a speech to, and I forgot, the women's group, bankers, about how American women, and then you drop this right there, right? Women need to prepare to make, and she uses a whole host of rhetorical devices to get the job done, right? Whether you put the rhetorical devices in the intro or not, as long as they're in the body, you're going to get it. But I would definitely drop it in there for reasons I said before. It reminds you that you got to have it, right? It is a speech that is laden in pathos, okay? It's an analogy, Jesse, right? She's comparing, right, the path that the women are going to have to do in the factories and everything else to a bumpy road. Okay, you could even say it is a metaphor, either one, right? Because what is analogy? There's two types of there's several types of analogies, but the two big ones that you learn are metaphor and simile. Simile has like or as, that you wrote does not. That would work. It would work, right? But it's an analogy. Or you could, if you used imagery, right? And she's trying to make you imagine a bumpy road. You're drawing, and it all comes back to the emotional appeal. As long as you bring it back, that women need to prepare to make more sacrifices. And these rhetorical devices emphasize that. I mean, think about it, that antithesis. Soft war leads to a hard place, and hard war leads to a happy place. That draws, we got to stay unified and got to do it. We got to make sacrifices. That rhetorical device is there for that purpose. All the we's, right? About how we as women are powerful. Romanticize if you want, okay? So basically what I did in my setup, and this doesn't, this isn't the only way to do it, but I led off with pathos, right? Pathos, 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 okay? And I decided over here when I was jotting it down that the best way to put these together was pathos and diction in the first paragraph. Because how does she get pathos across? Well, she gets it across because of all the diction, right? The we and the us and the sister. So there's plenty of examples there, okay? And Jesse, you could have worked that particular one into the pathos. Come on, girls, we got a bumpy road ahead and we can do it. Well, if you want to call it imagery, a metaphor, or an analogy, right? And then my second paragraph would just have used the anaphora, okay, and how the anaphora and the alliteration and the antithesis all tied back to that emotional appeal, okay? Anaphora also could have been tied in up here. There's no only way to do this part, right? It's how you arrange it is fine, okay? But if you're hitting, and it says very clearly in the direction, they want 4 examples, okay? So if you only find pathos, you better have 4 examples of pathos. If you've got, as I had, pathos with a subheading of diction, right? And I was just showing you how the diction tied into the united part, right? And then I used alliteration and antithesis and actually anaphora. Okay, so I had 5, and you don't have to have all those to pass this, okay? Just be, if you just, again, before we break out of here, if you just set up a little, and it doesn't have to be like me, but I would have something ready on paper I would prepare. I'd be sitting at my desk about a half hour to 45 minutes beforehand, get all this ready, be ready to go, and just be confident, go over the rhetorical devices. You guys should nail this thing, all right? The biggest thing that I fear is a disaster electronically that's beyond my control through you and College Board, okay? So make sure you check your email today, okay? Does anybody have any questions? Anybody want to ask me a question before we get out of here? All right. And anybody, if you guys are watching this late, right? I know a lot of you told me that you'd be able to. A lot of you told me that you would have to watch it later and do it later. It's all fine if you're watching this late. If you have any question about what you were thinking, just email me. Okay. If you want to write it out, all right, again, time it 25 minutes, type it out, send me a picture, whatever. I'll be happy to read it, okay? But if you've got this set up, right, you cannot screw it up, okay, when you write it, all right? They're not looking for elaborate sentence structure and all that jazz, okay? They want to know, do you know the pieces, okay? Do you know how to tear apart a piece of rhetoric? It's the most I now understand after watching videos and webinar classes why they picked this to be the be-all, end-all for this test, because that is what the nature of our class is, how people use words to make us feel things, whether it's sadness or empathy or crazy enough to charge over out of a foxhole and run into German machine guns, right? All part of rhetoric, okay? Peter, that sounds good. Pathos and an afro with 4 examples. I think you're winning. You know, not all of these are going to pick up on that antithesis. It's, you know, I'm much more experienced at spotting it, right? And the ruts and rocks are not obvious alliteration. The last one we did had obvious alliteration in it because there was multiple pieces in the same lines. It was a drum beat. You know, you can make an argument that I was reaching for rocks and ruts, but it's there. So she purposefully used, she could have used stones and grooves, but she didn't. She used rocks and ruts. Yeah, Jesse, I would assume using 4. It seems that I looked today over a myriad of different rhetorical analyses examples. The old ones don't have that, but the ones that College Board just posted and the example that they shared with us said specifically 4 examples, okay? And I confirmed with Miss Baird and Miss Clint because their test, the AP Lit test, is a literary analysis about a piece of literature. We're doing a rhetorical analysis of the piece of nonfiction. They have the same thing, and that's what they want. They want 4 examples from the text that come back to probably at least 2, okay? All right? And I have great confidence that you guys should be able to nail this. It's not, if you've been paying attention, you shouldn't have a hard time with this at all, okay? Any questions before we break out of here? Said if you do, send them to me. I hope you guys are reading Into the Wild and just kick back and enjoy and just jot down some notes, like I said in the last video. Not because I'm going to scrutinize, but things that you want me to discuss or want to touch on or you have just a curiosity about. And I would also say it might be handy while you're reading or anything to near a computer. Look up in Google Images the places that he's going. A lot of them are on the website, but it's kind of fun. What do you want to send, Peter? If you send it early, I can look at it and address anything you ask me. Okay. Again, Jacob, right? Yes. Okay. For instance, on this setup, it's clearly this is an essay or this is a speech about pathos, right? And again, Clare Boothe Luce is not sitting down at her desk going, I think we're doing pathos today, right? She's like, I need to motivate these women. How am I going to motivate these women? Going back to Jesse, make them feel like they're important. Okay. Well, because they are important. get them to understand that, like understand the big picture, right? Romanticize it. Okay. She's not thinking, I'm going to romanticize it. She's trying to motivate, right? The basketball coach, the football coach, any kind of coach doesn't come up, go, they don't get on a line and look at rhetorical devices and go, I'm going to use this one, this one, this one, and I'm going to give the hell of a speech at halftime and we're going to win. It's not the way it works. Rhetoric comes from the heart and the mind. Okay. And this was a speech from the heart that she gave. Nerds, geeks, and English teachers later on and break it all down and then try to get you to understand it. Just like in everything else in every other class that you take, everything's deconstructed to enhance your ability to think. So Jacob, yeah, I would have focused my whole first paragraph on pathos and just talked about how diction and anaphora supported the pathos. And then I'd have got into the, sorry about that, I'd have got into the lessers, which are the antithesis and the alliteration, okay? And I would have led with the big one. Lead with the big one, all right? That's what they do in journalism, lead with the big story, not save it for the end, okay? All right, I'm going to check out of here. Enjoy Into the Wild. Relax. No, Jacob, it's the people that make the class and the people who go to college for 4 to 8 years to be good at this, right? This thing that you can't eat, grow food, or defend yourself with. Rhetoric, all right? Have a good one, guys. Talk to you soon.